Hey everyone, welcome back. Let's continue our discussion on Star Trek Discovery Season 4. So, we're through 11 episodes, two more to go. And in our last encounter, we discussed whether species 10C were giants. Well, episode 11 proved that to be correct. At least appears to be correct. In episode 11, the crew visited what appears to be the former home of species 10C, or at least a very huge animal that was part of their ecosystem. Based on how the episode went down and other lines like scans and stuff like that, I believe that what we were seeing really was 10C. Based on how they're described, as their bone density was very light, and this was a gas giant that had its atmosphere stripped off from a bombardment, you could basically describe 10C as space dragons. That is definitely something new. Okay, but let's go down this path. They seem to be obviously intelligent, very evolved, because the pressure is needed to live on the surface of the essentially core of a gas giant is tremendous. Their local star has Dyson rings built around it, highly advanced. Okay, so this is what I'm thinking. Based on the fact that species 10C, from the information we were able to glean, communicates through pheromones. If I remember correctly, 16 to be exact, that they were able to distinctly identify on the surface of the planet. So going down this path, that kind of makes sense. You're in a gas giant, depending on what the atmosphere is. Sound may not work great, depending on the composition of the gases. Vision might be useless, or even infrared, or any kind of, on the electromagnetic spectrum, might kind of be useless, depending on what the atmosphere is composed of. But it's gas. Use gas. What happens if you fart in a room? It disperses from the area of greatest concentration to lowest concentration. So if you release a pheromone, you don't really have to do any work as a biological entity. Let the atmosphere do the work for you. This makes a lot of sense. As we can see, they're very careful about their young. They built a very fortified structure that survived 1,000 years after whatever this cataclysm was. Interesting. So let's continue down this path. This distortion field, or whatever they're calling it, is 2 to 3 orbits of Earth in size. So it's essentially like a floating or an orbiting Dyson field around a star with a Dyson ring. Okay, so hear me out. Let's jump to the conclusion, or let's make the assumption or hypothesis that 10C is blind. They cannot see anything on the electromagnetic spectrum. Now, maybe they've built technology that can, but then themselves can't, because there was no need for it. That 1 AU sized area that we're taking as a distortion field is actually a planetary defense grid that is keeping in gas. Maybe there's a few rocky planetoid cores inside, but I'm going to go on the assumption when they enter it, it's going to be like entering fluidic space, like just a gas giant equivalent. Now, earlier in some videos I've made, kind of went down the path of 10C may or may not know what they're doing. Let's think about this. Their proximity to the galactic barrier, and if their senses are evolutionary completely different than most humanoid life within the Milky Way, I think it bears speculation to think that they might have absolutely no clue what they're doing with the DMA. And there was a specific line that Saru said that I don't know if anyone's really caught on to it. And it was in some of the trailers for this past episode where he said he was detecting the life signs, and then he clarified, including the away teams. So obviously, there's something about that planet or the ecosystem, whatever, that masks life signs. So could it be interference from the distortion, or some mineral, or that gray powder, or whatever you want to call it? That's an interesting thing. Is there something in 10C's biology and technology that is even preventing them from seeing other life? Or have they had a bad experience with previous encounters? Was the bombardment of their planet natural? Who knows? We're definitely going to find out in the next two episodes. So right now I'm strongly leaning towards that 10C is unaware of the devastating actions they're having on Milky Way. That they don't have the ability to even sense other life. Something masks them, and between the environment which they evolved in, they might not even have any cognizance of what it would look like. And the galactic barrier is kind of hard to see through anyway. What are your thoughts? Do you like where I'm going with this? I kind of like it. But as always, leave your comments below and let's continue the discussion. See you later.